Welcome to episode 19 of Directed by Steven Spielberg. Today's film marks the beginning of the 2000s portion of Spielberg's career and also marks the return to the sci-fi genre for him with the 2001 sci-fi film AI, Artificial Intelligence. AI is basically a futuristic retelling of the classic tale of Pinocchio about a boy named David who is a robot who wants to be a real boy. I had seen AI once before but had very vague recollections of it, and so I was very much looking forward to checking it out properly today. After watching it, I can safely say that this film is absolutely Spielbergian in all of its aspects, but the question is, was it a good film? Let's find out. Artificial Intelligence is a science fiction drama set in a future where advanced robots, known as mechas, serve humans. The story centers on David, played by Haley Joel Osment, a highly advanced prototype robot designed to resemble a human child and programmed to love unconditionally. He is created by Cybertronics, a company looking to develop a new type of artificial being capable of genuine emotions. David is adopted by a couple, Monica and Henry, whose son Martin is in a coma. Initially hesitant, Monica eventually bonds with David, who forms a deep attachment to her. However, when Martin unexpectedly recovers, tensions arise between David and Martin, leading to dangerous situations. Fearing for David's safety, Monica decides to abandon him in a forest, leaving him to fend for himself. Believing that becoming a real boy will make Monica love him, David embarks on a quest with his robotic companion, Teddy, to find the blue fairy from the story of Pinocchio. His journey takes him through a dystopian world where robots are hunted and destroyed by humans. Along the way, he encounters Gigolo Joe, played by Jude Law, a pleasure mecha who helps him navigate this dangerous world. David eventually discovers the truth about his existence and the impossibility of becoming human. Thousands of years later, advanced robots discover David frozen underwater, preserving him as the last link to the extinct human race. In the film's poignant conclusion, they grant David a final, simulated day with a recreated version of Monica, fulfilling his wish for love and closure. The end. My first impressions of the film is that the first hour is damn near perfect. The second act meanders quite a bit as it leans more and more into the dystopian survival themes. And then the third act is quite emotional but drags on a little too long. Overall, this makes for an engaging film that at times is excellent and at others is average. That said, Artificial Intelligence could very well be the most Spielbergian film in his filmography. A story about a boy seeking the love of his mother in a world filled with sci-fi wonders feels like the kind of story that Steven Spielberg was meant to tell. The irony is that the original concept of the film was, for the longest time, set to be made by Stanley Kubrick prior to his passing. Spielberg ultimately picked up the film and completed it as a tribute to Kubrick and his influence on science fiction. We'll never know what Kubrick's version of the film would have looked like, but one thing's for sure, the version we got absolutely belongs to Steven Spielberg. I've spoken about Spielberg lights consistently throughout this video series, but AI has easily the most excessive use of this visual cue in any Spielberg film. Usually used sparingly and to create a specific tone, whereas the Spielberg lights in this film are almost exclusive to the central theme of the film, which simply put, is love. The Spielberg lights enhance this theme by constantly showing the saturated lighting in the backgrounds, particularly to highlight the innocence and purity of David with an almost angelic glow. This is important to convincing us of the sincerity of his feelings of love towards his mother, which we are naturally inclined to question given he is a robot. Speaking of David's innocence, Spielberg further enhances this with the use of high-angle shots that look down on David, highlighting his smaller stature. Zoom-in close-ups are used as well to further this theme, along with creating that sense of wonder around the world building. But the most interesting aspect of the film by far is its core dilemma, and that is, can a robot be taught to love? David is designed for the sole purpose of providing love to his owner. He exists as a scientific anomaly that contradicts everything that they believe is possible through the technology of artificial intelligence. The question is, did the film convince me that David's ability to love is worthy of me regarding him as a human being? My answer to that is, sort of. I'm convinced that David is capable of replicating actions and emotions that are synonymous with the ability to love, but I also can't escape the fact that those actions and emotions are based on a calculus. He can replicate the feelings and even tell himself that they're real, but it doesn't change the fact that the source of those feelings are artificial. It is this very dilemma that makes the outcome of the film all the more ironic. You have an evolved species thousands of years in the future searching the earth to learn about the now extinct mankind. In doing so, they find David, frozen below the water, staring at the blue fairy whom he wholeheartedly believed in. By finding him, it is poetic that the robot that wished to be a real boy would go on to be the very being that a future civilization would base their impression of the human race on. The first half of the film is easily the best portion of the film, where David deals the most with his relationship with his adoptive parents and brother before the story turns into more of a sci-fi adventure. One of the best scenes of the film is at the end of the first act when Monica drives David out to the wilderness for his own safety. It's incredibly emotional as David begs her not to let him go, but the part that I thought was subtly impactful was Monica's body language when pushing him off of her. You can see that she's forcing herself to physically treat him as though he's a robot, whilst deep down you can see that the decision is breaking her heart as much as it would if it were her real son. It's great stuff and testament to Frances O'Connor's great performance in the role. Speaking of performances, our young lead Haley Joel Osment knocks it out of the park, playing an AI robot with emotions. A little known fact is that one of the reasons Kubrick was holding off from making this movie for so long is that he didn't think a human actor could convincingly play the role of David and was waiting for CGI technology to get to the point where it could fill the role. Spielberg, however, believed in Osment's abilities after his performance in The Sixth Sense, and boy was he correct. It would have been so easy for a young Osment to overdo the robotic acting, but he delivers it so subtly that it feels organic and genuine. It's worth noting as well that AI is Spielberg's first child-led film since Empire of the Sun, and adds to Spielberg's reputation of garnering great performances out of young actors. Another great performance is Jude Law as Gigolo Joe. He is by far the most charismatic character in the film, by design, and he superbly toes the line of a robot doing its best impression of someone with charisma who pleases women for a living. You can tell the character knows what it's doing, but it doesn't quite understand it. It's those subtleties that also make his performance memorable and engaging. My issues with AI, however, are mainly with the second act, which devolves into more of an adventure film, somewhat abandoning the thorough exploration of love and consciousness that we were getting for the first hour. Thankfully, it returns to that theme at the end of the film, but I would have much preferred further discussion of these themes instead of those action set pieces. All in all, Artificial Intelligence is a really good film that had the potential to be great and possibly an all-timer. It's ironic that its flaws come in its leaning towards adventure despite being directed by Steven Spielberg, who is arguably the king of adventure. It is still a genuinely thought-provoking subject matter that at its best is superbly executed. It's classic Spielberg on a visual and thematic level, and it's fitting that his first film of the new millennium was about the future and artificial intelligence. And that is episode 19 of Directed by Steven Spielberg in the bag. A very solid entry in Spielberg's career and a reminder of his genius in the sci-fi genre. The first hour of this film was easily a 9 out of 10, whilst the second act meanders around 6.5. The ending does bring it home, and so for that I'm going to give AI a 7.5 out of 10. My best placement of AI is 12th place, above The Lost World and below The Color Purple. The next film in this series is a continuation of the sci-fi genre with the 2002 sci-fi thriller Minority Report, starring Tom Cruise. A great film that I have seen a number of times, but I'm very much looking forward to checking out once again. Until then, I thank you all very much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.